Saludos. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility's June webinar titled LGBTQIA+ Latinx Leadership in Corporate America, Intersectionality and Belonging. My name is Sid Wilson. I am the President and Chief Executive Officer of ASED. I'm excited for today's webinar in recognition of Pride Month as we illuminate the everyday challenges facing LGBTQIA+ Latinx employees in corporate America. Our esteemed speakers will talk about our esteemed speakers are proud examples of authentic leadership. Their stories and perspectives highlight the importance and the impact of intentional intersectional advances in DE&I in corporate America. Today's guests will address the challenges and opportunities of creating a greater culture of workforce belonging for LGBTQIA+ Latinx individuals. Their personal stories and executive achievements are inspiring. We hope the perspectives they offer today will help individuals and companies to foster greater inclusion. Before we get started, I'd like to thank today's first sponsor, Toyota. Here to speak on behalf of Toyota is Joe Gonzalez, Manager for Warranty, Finance, and Recovery, and current Plano Spectrum Internal and External Co-Chair and founding member of Todos. Please welcome Joe Gonzalez from Toyota.
Good afternoon and buenas tardes, everyone. On behalf of Toyota, I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar on LGBTQIA+ Latinx Leadership in Corporate America, Intersectionality and Belonging. I'm honored to be introducing this panel because it addresses my own intersectionality of the Latinx and LGBTQIA+ community. I'm a founding member of Todos and also, as mentioned, internal-external co-chair for Spectrum, the similar group for LGBTQ allies and colleagues. You think the intersectional population of LGBTQIA and the Latinx people are just a handful of folks? Think again. Latinx millennials are actually most likely the demographic to identify this way. And there are many Latinx millennials, 1 in 4 actually. And that's why it's essential for companies to create a supportive environment for intersectional communities. I'd like to show you a short video in a minute that shows how Toyota values its LGBTQIA team members. It is why I consider Toyota my second home and fellow team members familia. Let's dive into this discussion after this video and look for strategies where we can make intersectional colleagues feel safe, authentic, welcomed, and respected in the workplace. Vayamos juntos.
We are the strong, the tenacious, and compassionate members of diverse communities. We love without limits, stand proud at the intersection of equity and justice, and come out not once, but every single day. Life is not binary. It's a beautiful and diverse rainbow of every shade. Whether it's supporting our Toyota team members to recognize their definition of family, or partnering with them to drive business decisions, or serving the community, helping future generations know they are safe, valued, and respected. We celebrate you for the differences that make us all unique. It's the love that drives us all.
Thank you, Joe. And thanks again to Toyota for being a longtime supporter of ASED and our mission of advancing Hispanic inclusion. Now I'd like to introduce our second sponsor for today's webinar, Molson Coors. Please enjoy the video from Molson Coors.
June is Pride Month, and it's through initiatives like Lager that Molson Coors allows me to bring my full self to work to be the best employee that I can be. Lager is Molson Coors' LGBTQ+ employee resource group. We work with leadership across all functions and locations to make sure that LGBTQ+ employees feel validated, recognized, and supported. We're also making sure that our support goes beyond Pride Month and partnering with the Human Rights Campaign, the Equality Federation, Brave Space Alliance, and the National Center for Transgender Equality, and other local organizations. Because we have big brands, we have big voices. And so we can lend big support to these initiatives that really better the lives of LGBTQ community members.
When Vizzy launched, we made a commitment to use our platform to be a true ally for the LGBTQ+ community. And we wanted to make sure that was sincere. So we made a $1 million donation to the Human Rights Campaign, which is the biggest donation to an LGBTQ+ organization by a hard seltzer. We're incredibly proud to launch our first Pride Pack this June, which was created in partnership with the Human Rights Campaign. We worked closely with our partners at the HRC and our internal Molson Coors LGBTQ+ employee resource group to create packaging with the message that we felt would resonate with LGBTQ+ consumers and allies. So our packaging, Love Your Identity, Live Past Labels, encourages consumers to celebrate their own unique identity, no matter what beautiful expression that may embody. And we drive this home by introducing our very first labelless can, which is really, really awesome. We at Vizzy don't claim to have all the answers, but our hope is that through this partnership, that this program and any others we create in the future will provide meaningful support to the community.
Great. Thank you, Molson Coors, for your support of ASED over many decades. And again, also thank you for Toyota. We really appreciate both your sponsorships and support. So let's get started. So I am proud to introduce our moderator for today's webinar, Jai Vargas. She is our ASED Vice President of Strategic Engagement and Initiatives. Jai, take it away.
Thank you so much, Sid. I appreciate your leadership in this conversation, and thank you so much, Molson Coors, as well as Toyota. I'm so excited to have this discussion with you. Happy Pride, and I hope that you've got your coffee or your water in hand, because this is going to be an incredibly engaging and educational conversation. I've actually personally been working with the LGBTQ community for about 14 years now, and I have a gay ex-husband as well, who is still my best friend, who happens to work at Toyota for many, many, many years. And so the LGBTQ community is very near and dear to my heart. The year is 2021. Just this week, we watched as Carl Nassib of the Las Vegas Raiders came out as gay to the whole world. Can you believe that he's the only active NFL player to ever do so? Well, his jersey, number 94, is currently the top-selling jersey this week. He shared the incredible support and outpouring from his community and his workplace, the NFL. Today, we're going to be speaking out about the intersectionality of being Latinx and of the LGBTQ community in our workplace. Many Latinx in the US identify as LGBTQIA+, and according to a 2018 study, Latinx millennials are the most likely millennial demographic group in the US to identify as non-straight. This signals a major opportunity for advocacy in corporate America, which is exactly what ASED does. In today's webinar, you're going to hear from corporate leaders share their unique intersectional perspectives, expand on their professional experiences, and provide insight into how they create an environment of belonging for the LGBTQIA+ community at their organizations. We're also going to discuss how to support intersectional populations at your workplace and how the distinct lens of intersectional leadership benefits companies today. Now, I'd love to have each one of our panelists take a moment to share with us their role, their responsibilities, and the organization that they represent. And then we're going to dive into some questions that I have prepared for this afternoon. For those of you watching along on our tons of social media platforms, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, hello, please make sure that you've located the chat box and you send us your questions and your comments for our incredible panelists. First, I'd like to welcome Jimena Delgado from Bank of America. Jimena, welcome to the stage. Please tell us a little bit about your role and your responsibility at Bank of America. And thank you so much for being here and sharing today.
Happy to be here and happy Pride. For those of you in the West Coast, good morning. For those in the East Coast, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Jimena Delgado, and I am part of the Bank of America's Environmental, Social, and Governance Group, or ESG for short, but also part of the Bank of America Charitable Foundation. I'm based in San Francisco, and I acknowledge that San Francisco is located on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Yamatush Ohlone people, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. I say this because I have the privilege and honor to have two portfolios within the Bank of America Charitable Foundation. I lead and manage a portfolio of Native American organizations, so we partner with them, as well as a diversity and inclusion portfolio. And I happen to have, as a partner, Hacer. Day in, day out, I get to do what we're doing today. And so it's fabulous to be here. Want to keep it short so that we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jimena, and thank you, Bank of America. We can't wait to hear your story. We appreciate you so much. Next up is Jaime Romano from Accenture. Jaime, welcome to the stage. Thank you so much for being here. Please share with us your role and your responsibilities at Accenture.
Thank you, Jai. Pleasure to be here. And thank you, Acer, for making me part of this fabulous panel. So Jaime Romano, I'm Managing Director in Accenture Interactive, which is our digital agency. I've been with Accenture for about 16 years. What we do for our clients is we help them transform from being just, their regular business into a business of experience. What that means is that we make sure that the experience that they want to provide their customers, their employees, their stakeholders in general, is what drives business decisions. That in combination to insights from data to drive business outcomes, that's what we do. And that's my role in Accenture. As part of that, also, I am the executive sponsor of our Pride ERG in Minneapolis. That's my home office, even though I'm joining you today from New York City. Pleasure to be here. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I came out about 18 years ago, and I was part of Accenture when I came out. And, the support that I got from leaders, our allies, and some of the LGBTQ people that were out at that time was invaluable for me to be able to take the bold step and be authentic. And being authentic allowed me to be the leader that I am today. So pleasure to be here.
I love it. Muchísimas gracias, Jaime, and welcome. Thank you so much, Accenture, as well. Next up is Jose Velez Silva from Comcast. Jose, welcome to the stage. Thank you so much for being a continued supporter of Hacer. Please let us know a little bit about your role and responsibilities at Comcast.
Thank you, Jai, Jimena, Jaime. It is a pleasure to be sharing the stage with you guys. Hopefully, in the near future, we're going to be doing this in person as we move away from these horrible times that we all have lived in for the past 15 months. I am the Vice President of Multicultural Brand Marketing, integrating brand marketing for Comcast NBC Universal. I am responsible to lead the team that is building our Xfinity brand among the Hispanic, LGBTQ, African American, Asian American, military, and all diverse groups. I want to really thank Sid Wilson. Sid is a part of our Comcast NBC Universal Joint Diversity Council, advising us on diversity, on equity and inclusion for our companies. I think that the role that obviously the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility has done to help educate not only our company, but many other companies is something that it's really outstanding. And more companies should benefit of having the partnership with you guys.
Muchísimas gracias, Jose, and to Comcast for always supporting ACER. I'm so excited for this conversation. We've just checked in with all of our social media channels and everyone is pumped. Those questions are going to be funneled just in a little bit, but over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to engage with you so that I can learn a little bit more about your personal experiences as well as how you came out, as some of you mentioned, in the workplace over the last 15, 20, and 25 years. I'm going to begin with Jimena Delgado from Bank of America. Jimena, help us get to know you a little bit more. I want to understand the experiences that really form the perspective you bring to today's conversation. Share with us as much as you'd like about yourself and the personal highlights you feel are connected to today's session.
Sure, thank you. And thank you again for this fabulous panel and opportunity to talk to folks today. So I've been with the bank for 23 years. I think I'm the older one here on this panel and hopefully the wise one, just kidding. I've been out of the, after my master's, I went and did a 2-year stint with doing public policy, then went to a nonprofit and then to Bank of America. My first job after that master's, I was so closeted. I just every day, playing the name game. And luckily, my partner then, who is now my wife, her name is Frederique. So I could interchangeably say, oh yeah, Freddie and I did this over the weekend and did that. But you really carry a burden. You carry a burden in the fact that every day you're trying to hide yourself, to really be who you are. And so after those 2 years in that job, I left and went to a nonprofit. And really it was an opportunity to really be my authentic self. Lasted there for 2 years and then really joined Bank of America. And I swore that I would never go back into the closet. But it's interesting that you say, what our coming out process. I think for me, maybe on a daily basis when I meet new folks, you reintroduce yourself, and I never mask who I am at the bank. And I think from day one, I've always had the opportunity just to be who I am, to bring my authentic self. And being at the bank for 23 years, having the opportunity to build a family through those 23 years has taught me a great deal. And so it's, Bank of America has provided a welcoming environment. There's been some challenges here and there like any other place, but being the culture at Bank of America is very welcoming, and I think it's grown quite a bit. I remember the first, so my wife had our first child, and he was born in 2003. And I vividly remember a time talking to HR because I was going to take leave to be with my child. And it was a funny conversation because the person on the other end said, no, wait, you're having the child. Like, you have to go to the hospital. And I was like, no, it is not me. It's my wife. And there was, the pause on the other end. And so that was in 2003. So fast forward in 2008, when I gave birth to our daughter, it was very different. And so, I'm happy to be part of a company that learns every year and learns every day, because it is people like us who bring our authentic selves to create change. For me, I walk into any room and I'm a proud Latina lesbian. I was born and raised in Colombia, South America, came here when I was 12. And so I almost feel like this bicultural piece, which I hope that I have passed on to my kids, but it's every day. And the conversations today are very important for us to continue to provide that welcoming environment and the importance of representation. So it's folks like Jose, Jaime, myself, and even you, Yai, as a advocate, as an ally. It's so very important. And so, it's great to be here today, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more deep discussion.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jimena. Wow, 23 years at Bank of America. Congratulations. I'm sure a lot.
I'm hiding my arrugas.
No, not at all. Not at all. Beautiful skin because you're Latina. Absolutely. So now I'd love to engage Jaime. Jaime from Accenture. Research from Out Leadership suggests that only 35% of employees are aware of openly LGBTQAI plus senior level employees, such as yourself in the companies. With this information in mind, how do you view your role as a mentor, as an executive sponsor, as you mentioned, specifically towards the other Latinx LGBTQ employees at Accenture?
That is a great question, and it's a responsibility that I don't take lightly. It's not only about the corporate culture, but I grew up in Puerto Rico in a very, very conservative family, Catholic. I wanted to also please my father. I'm a people pleaser, and I wanted him to be proud of me, right? And I didn't see any role model anywhere of a gay person that I could look up to and say I want to be like him. Right? They were just non-existent. So that kind of aggravated the fact that I was, I wanted to be myself, but I didn't know how. My parents were, again, as I said before, very conservative. Having a gay son is probably not something that they wanted to hear. So I think visibility to role models is so important. And I think that, in my company at Accenture, when I came out, I was already part of the company, and the support that I got was incredible. And some of the things that encouraged me to come out was that I met some other leaders within Accenture that were part of the community. And, I talked to them privately first, and then eventually, that and the huge community of allies that we had gave me the push to really be authentic, because I realized again that I cannot be an authentic leader. I cannot be a good husband or a good father without being true to myself, right? So I think that visibility is number one. I am the proud father of 3 boys. My journey has been, has taken turns and twists. As I said before, I came from a conservative family, so I took the path of least resistance. I married my college sweetheart, and we had 3 boys. And when I came out, I made it a purpose for them, because I didn't know if they were going to be straight or gay or what, in what spectrum of our community they will fall. I made it a point to be always open, to have open conversations, and to make sure that they always saw role models that they could look up to. And that's what I try to do as a leader within Accenture, especially when we hire new consultants, analysts, and when we hire people with experience. I try to introduce myself, who I am, what I represent, and make sure that they are, they feel that they can ask questions, that they have access to myself. When we organize events like in Pride, but not only in Pride, I try to make sure that we have people that represent the community, right? That we have folks that are from a Latinx community or African American community or other communities, so that the term inclusion really is inclusion, right? So we want to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table, and again, I think that visibility, that looking at a role model that has quote unquote made it, and that they can identify, looks like, he looks like me, and he's going through what I am going through, and he made it. So I think that definitely brings hope and pushes people to have the courage to then ask for what they deserve, right? So, I want to be treated equally. I want to have the same opportunities for advancement in the career. I want to have the same opportunities as everybody else because, we are all unique, right? Intersectionality is, forms, right? So most people have tons of things that intersect. So that makes us, in my mind, more alike than different, right? So that's kind of the message.
That's wonderful. Muchísimas gracias, Jaime, for sharing that. I think it's so important, like you mentioned, being able to be that support system and that role model and that executive sponsor to Latinos at Accenture who are of the LGBTQ community, and as well as the allies who look to you for advice on how to support, how to be an advocate, how to really stand up and be an active, strategic, vocal ally. And I've heard that you do some great work at Accenture doing just that. So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Now I want to move to Jose from Comcast. My question for you is, one of the key points we want to discuss today is the intersection of your ethnic identity with your sexual and or gender identity. In your view, how would you describe the intersection of race and ethnicity and LGBTQAI+ inclusion? Or how would you encourage companies to leverage that intersection that you've lived for increased impact into the workplace? I know that Comcast does so much on this front.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I have to start by saying that identity is not monolithic. And by that, what I mean is I consider myself a 400%er. In fact, a 500%er. And what that means for me is I'm 100% Puerto Rican. I was born, raised, educated in Puerto Rico, and then moved to the United States to build my professional career here in the United States. And I'm 100% Hispanic. I have adopted all the ways, the behaviors of the Hispanic here in the United States. And I'm 100% proud American, but I'm also 100% LGBTQ. In fact, I'm 100% gay. And on top of that, part of my identity is my corporate identity as a leader of the organization. So when you combine all of that, that intersection is not just of race and gender, it's also about what you do and where you want to be. And I think that for me, what it's incredibly important is to convey that at Comcast is the first place that I have felt that my authentic self, it's not only appreciated, it's valued, but it's also listened. And one of the things that we do as a corporation has been extremely successful for us at Comcast NBC Universal is our LGBTQ plus ERG group. Our out group, in fact, was one of the first founded back in 1986, where a lot of the people that probably are watching right now, maybe they were not even born or they were still in school. So we have had this belief that our diversity groups are a key point of the foundation of how we build a stronger, more inclusive, and even more dynamic company as a whole. Obviously, we have our out group, which I'm a member of. I'm also part and member of our Latino ERG or group. And I'm also a proud member of our military group, ERG group, because all of those identities are part of who I am. So what I encourage other companies, obviously, is to really form groups within your employee base to really engage on who they are, learn of the things that they're going through, learn of their difference, and build a stronger company for the future. I have to say that because I am gay and Puerto Rican, I don't know it all. And one of the most important things, and my life experiences have been mine, but I'm always constantly learning from other people within the Comcast NBC Universal of their experiences. And that's what we try to reflect also on the type of programming that we bring. When you look at the programming that we put in millions and millions of households, it is a diverse programming, and we curate content so that not only our section of the gay community or the lesbian community could see themselves represented in the storylines that are on their TV or on their streaming devices. And that's why I personally feel extremely proud of the work that not only Comcast does for me as an employee, but the work that Comcast does in order to advance equity and advance, obviously, representation in the media industry globally.
I love that. And Comcast plays a major, major role when it comes to identifying Latinx producers and directors and screenwriters. An incredible job.
And it's also across, not only because some people might think that, oh, well, that's part of Telemundo. No, we have, if you look at a media company, 9 out of 10 Hispanics, all Hispanics, are engaging with any of our products by NBC, Bravo, on a monthly basis. There's no other media company that has the reach and the clout to bring the stories of the full Hispanic community. And like, for instance, if you see one of the soap operas that are now at Telemundo, there is one of the main characters, he is gay, and he's a young gay millennial, and telling that story of who he is and how proud he is, and he's not just the psychic, like usually content put. We are part of the community, and we are role models for many others.
It's beautiful. And I know personally the work that NBC Universal and Comcast does, looking for that Black and brown talent to be not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera. They have scholarships and grants and programs and tons of communication around that. So make sure that you share that and look for it.
Well, we have committed over $1 billion, I believe, in trying to bring, obviously, diversity and inclusion. And we have grants and that we committed last year as part of a bigger initiative that is going to be throughout the next 10 years of really putting money to bring those stories to life and really give the stage to the stories that have not been told. And there are many stories that still need to be told. Is that correct? Told, sorry. It's a Puerto Rican. I'm still Puerto Rican at heart.
Estamos en familia.
Estamos en familia, yo lo sé. And we're giving that opportunity to people to tell their stories. And it makes me super proud.
And we're so glad to have you there in that space. We appreciate you, Jose. Now, Jimena, let's talk a little bit about allyship. What role has allyship played in creating inclusive spaces for you in the workplace, and why is it so important for you? Did you have many allies at Bank of America when you came out so many years ago?
Get myself off mute here. So interesting. You know, allyship, it's critical, right? It's critical for all of us. The way that I see allyship is it's a lifelong process, right? It's a building of meaningful relationships and based really on trust and accountability with groups like LGBT, allies within the Latino community, with the African American, Black community, the Asian community. So it's a whole process, right? And it's lifelong because we all need to learn from each other. And if you look at any social movement, you really need that allyship, right? Because we can't do it all by ourselves. And you need that trust, you need that relationship building in order really to change the hearts and minds of people in the way that we see each other, right? The growth of respect. And so for me, and you know, Bank of America, we have 10 US-based employee networks, from LGBT plus to the work of OLA, which is our Latino and Hispanic employee network, to the Disability Action Network, to, you know, all sort of really affinities. We even have a parents and caregivers group. And within all of those, we're learning from each other, right? Because it is that basis of that relationship. So for me, being at the bank for 23 years, and like I said, you're almost coming out almost on a daily basis, only because when people ask, oh, so what you do during the weekend? And it may be, with somebody that you haven't talked to in the past, and you say, well, my wife and I, right? And so you have those, and you build that trust, right? And so you garner that person as an ally. And it is in building that relationship with associates across the US or even globally, since we're a global company, it's very important. And so, I've moved within the bank in role. I had a local market role, so I was very much San Francisco centric. But now, being part of the charitable foundation for the past 7-8 years, it's much more of a national, and I get to meet folks that are really from a global and national perspective. And so you build those allies, and so you really need to have that. What was the word? Your kitchen cabinet, right? Because if you want to grow professionally, you really need those folks that are there to understand you and to help you along. And it's almost you have to have your allies, you have to have your mentors, and you have to have your sponsors, right? So for you to really build a professional career in a global company like Bank of America. So to answer your question, we definitely need allies in order for us to continue to create change, to create welcoming, and to really build that representation in companies like Bank of America.
Thank you so much, Jimena. And you know what? It's probably something that most of us don't think about quite often, that you, as a bisexual woman, as a lesbian woman, as a gay individual, a trans individual in the workplace, sometimes have to come out multiple times over your career to someone that you've just been introduced to. You don't exactly know how they are going to engage with you or react or what they're going to say. So thank you for sharing that with us and being so transparent. It's something that we don't think about.
If I may, just a little short story there. I was, like 2 weeks ago, I was on a video call, and we're having these group discussions on the work that we're doing that is part of our 1.25 billion commitment to racial equality and economic mobility. And we're working with 21 colleges and universities, very much Latino, Hispanic serving, plus HBCUs and community colleges. And in one of those conversations, we were talking, somebody said, oh, so what does your husband do? And I was immediately like, you mean my wife, right? So every day it happens. So you just have to, it's almost become second nature. But you're right. Every day we have to make sure that we're bringing our authentic selves.
Yes, along with many lessons that we've learned in this space, assuming someone's identity or who their partner is not something that we want to do. So thank you for that. That's certainly a lesson learned. Jaime, can you talk to us a little bit about the corporate LGBTQ inclusion agenda? How are you, or how is your organization making sure that Latinos and the Latinx community is being respected and represented among the corporate LGBTQ inclusion agenda?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I may just touch a little bit on the coming out every day kind of a comment. As a consultant, I meet new clients all the time, right? And it's almost like every time I have to come out. Then the good news is that, it's almost like second nature. It comes natural in the conversation as I immediately say something about my husband, so I think it's getting easier and easier, but still, sometimes you wonder, I wonder how that particular person is going to take this comment. But you gotta be your authentic self, so there's nothing to it. But to answer your question, I think again it's all about, like Jimena was saying, it's about representation. So we have multiple ERGs as most companies do, and they're very active, and we have tons of people engaged. When in addition to that, big accounts have their own, ERGs and have their own diversity and inclusion efforts. So at the beginning of my career with Accenture, I was leading the diversity and inclusion effort for one of our clients, Best Buy. And it's one of the best companies in Minneapolis. They're very progressive. They have a lot of ERGs themselves. And the client account lead at the time tapped me in the shoulder to be in a panel such as this to educate our leadership in terms of what it means to be diverse within our company. What are the barriers? What are the opportunities? How can we improve the culture so diversity and inclusion is embraced? When that happened, I was still in the process of coming out. So he tapped into my shoulder because I was leading the diversity and inclusion and because I'm Hispanic, right? But again, that was one of the opportunities I used to actually come out to the entire organization because I introduced myself, to use Jose's analogy. I'm 100% Hispanic. I'm 100%, gay as well. So, and that came as a surprise. I could see my client account lead that was sitting in the audience going like, there's something I learned about you. But I think it's about representation. It's about tapping in the shoulder people that you think are going to bring that experience, that are going to be sharing their stories so that everybody else can learn, what are the uniqueness and what are the challenges that Latinx, communities that are intersecting with LGBTQ plus. What are those stories? What are the things that we need to think about? Without representation, really, people tend to gravitate to what is important to them. One thing that we're very conscious right now within Accenture is to make sure that we have representation of our transgender community, in particular transgender women of color, because unfortunately we all know how hard it is for women of color, of transgender women of color to just survive, right? So we are making a special effort to bring awareness to their lives, their stories, their needs, things as simple as, having all-inclusive bathrooms in our buildings, right? So people don't have to feel like, oh my God, I can't, what do I do? Make it so it's, they can bring their full self and talents towards, solving problems for our clients, right? So that's the goal. But I think that's what we strive to do, is making sure that in all of these ERGs we have people that have, it's a combination. It's making sure that we have inclusivity, because inclusivity is not just a word to put in a pamphlet, right? It's really, we need to live by it, because otherwise, actually, what happens is the ERGs start to deteriorate and people don't participate. So you need to keep that alive, and it's by injecting that diverse points of view and diverse people, not only within the Latinx community, but also, age related, right? So we need to make sure that all people from within the community are represented of all ages, etc. So I think is tapping in the shoulder, is trying to identify who are those people that you think are going to bring their best self, their stories are going to resonate with the rest of the organization, and that can, then we can bring those stories to the leadership to make sure that they are taken into account as we create plans, as we create programs, as we decide, what to do to help our communities and our employees better.
I love that. Gracias, Jaime. And it's also important to note that you're an executive at Accenture. You are very busy, but you make the time to be involved and engaged and vocal for the LGBTQ community, for the Latino ERG, for the Pride ERG. You make sure that you make the time on top of your full-time role to be an advocate, to be a role model for everyone else. So that is so important, because you could very well say that your plate is full. So how do you make all of that time that you need to be able to do the work you do?
Yeah, I think it's important to give back, right? So it's part of, feeling good about who you see in the mirror when you look at yourself in the morning, right? Getting ready for work. But also on a selfish manner, also being so involved, you start identifying talent. You start identifying people that are like, this is going to be the next, hot thing in the company, because you these people in these situations are really passionate. They're bringing their passion, their talent. So it is a great laboratory for me to identify, who's who and who can, quite frankly, say, hey, my next project, you're coming with me, right? Because so I think it's important to make the time. It's important to give back to the community, but also it's an opportunity to meet individuals outside the day-to-day, work setting, and try to figure out, how to bring that passion and that into the work environment. So I think that there are definitely the reasons of giving back, but also the selfish reasons of just being connected and knowing what's happening, get the pulse of what's happening in your organization, right? Because sometimes we think everything is hunky-dory, and all of a sudden you go into one of these meetings and people start talking about, well, this and that, and it's like, oh my God, I had no idea, right? So it's a great eye-opener as well.
I love that. Thank you so much for being so involved. Those are my questions for you all. And we have so much activity in our social media platforms. One of the questions that I'm going to share is from our LinkedIn platform, and it's for Jose, because you mentioned a little bit about the ERGs, the employee resource groups. Someone asked, what are specific examples of how an LGBTQ ERG can advocate for more inclusive policies within a company? So if you're part of an ERG, the LGBTQ one specifically, how can that ERG advocate for more inclusive policies within a company like Comcast?
Well, I could give you a number of examples, obviously, of things that the ERG has helped us. But one reason a couple of years ago, the ERG brought to our attention, and they said, our LGBTQ community, well, at the time it was LGBT community, is more than just the gay, lesbian community. And at the time, the out group brought into our attention, listen, we have people of color, we have people obviously that are transgender, that needs to be reflected not only from what we do from an advertising perspective and feel that it is inclusive, but also on the storylines that are being brought to life within the content that we serve. So out, and I remember Scott Conant, who is a brilliant curator of our content within our Xfinity platform, brought more of those stories so that we could highlight them. Because at the end of the day, if you don't see yourself not only in the media, but also represented the proper way, people are going to be a bit more sometimes averse to saying who they are, because there's no one that they could, like you said, Jaime, there was no one that you could see that that is me. You know what I mean? And that is something that obviously the Out ERG has done for us. It's really been 10 steps ahead of really what other companies are doing, bringing those initiatives for us, so that we could not only do it from a content perspective, but also on the hiring and recruitment of talent within the company, which is critical for us to be able to succeed.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for that. Jimena, this next question is for you. It's also from our social media platforms. And someone asked, you mentioned the assumptions that require you to come out on a daily basis. Those experiences, to me, speak to the cultural oversight that others people. What about the written policies or protocols that you have come across that also other the LGBTQ community at work? What is something you find is frequently overlooked in your experience?
That's a great question. It's a great question, and I read it because we could see the questions, and it's very interesting. When I say that I come out at work, it's because it's somebody that may not know me, right? We present ourselves, and when you want to get to know somebody a little bit better, you ask them, a little more insightful questions. And so I don't feel that when I come out, I'm othering. I think when we're not having people at the table that look different than us, I think that, that's when we're not being inclusive. So I think when I think of policies and protocols, I think the more diverse the conversations, the people around the table, not only by age, by race, but also by ability, by the way that you think, we provide those welcoming environments. And it's all about, for me, the way that I see it is being inclusive, being respectful, learning more. You and I can disagree. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right? But that doesn't mean that I'm seeing you as other. It's having the respect to acknowledge that we may not see eye to eye, but having the environment to bring different, what's the word that I'm looking for? Different points of view. I think it's important. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but othering is something that I've experienced in my life, right? Being an immigrant, being a woman, being lesbian, right? And I'm trying to get rid of that because it limits me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. And if you want to elaborate and interact as well, all of these questions are coming from our Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn platforms. So you can always jump on those platforms and interact and connect and elaborate as well.
Jai, if I may add, I want to give one example of how ERGs have helped the betterment of the entire company in terms of the policies, and it's the inclusive benefits. At Comcast and NBC Universal, we offer transgender inclusive health benefits, and we also offer employment and leave benefit to same-sex domestic partner couples. That is something that not many companies offer, and that came out of a discussion within the ERG and the government affairs team. And we as a company, we offer inclusive benefits for our transgender employees. And many companies right now are starting to obviously build upon this. But at Comcast NBC Universal, that's something that we have had for many, many years. And it comes from really understanding the needs of not only our employees, but also the community that we serve. And that's why sometimes people ask me, where do you work? And I said, I don't work because I love the place that I spend every single day. And it is my passion, obviously, to be part of Comcast NBC Universal. And it's because of things like this, So I wanted just to give you that example because in the question that you asked me, how policies has changed. And that's an HR policy that evolved because of an ERG comment and an idea.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love the fact that you love the work you do so much that it's your passion that it doesn't even feel like work.
Listen, life is too short to okay.
That's right. It is too short. We wish and we hope for everyone to be at a place of work that really encompasses and allows for them to be everything that they are. And if you don't work at a place like that, please connect with Jose. Tell him that you're interested at a job with Comcast. On LinkedIn, make sure that you find the job, you apply for it, and then send him a note, as well as with Jimena at Bank of America and Jaime at Accenture.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're always looking for diverse talent. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. These organizations are looking for you. And that's actually the mission and the core of what we do at ACER. Our mission and our purpose is to make sure that we respect, identify, and represent Hispanic inclusion on corporate boards. There aren't many Hispanic on corporate boards because the talent pipeline is still being built. And so we need to make sure that you all are aware of so many of these opportunities with Jose, with Jaime, and with Jimena. The last question that I have really, really quickly is for Jaime. Before we close, can you share what our country can do to be more inclusive of the LGBTQ community? This is a very big question, but what can our country do to be more inclusive?
I think it starts with the individual, right? I think we all need to, be allies, right? We need to get engaged. We need to be champions for inclusivity and for our LGBTQ plus community, right? So I think it starts with the individual and mobilizing and raising your voice, because, the gay marriage was a great example, right, of how communities can come together for doing the right thing, right? I mentioned that I live in Minneapolis, and before, gay marriage was the law of the land, the community galvanized and got allies from all over. I mean, suburban moms were knocking on doors trying to make sure that, marriage could be legal, same-sex marriage could be legal. So I think it starts with the individual. It starts with getting engaged, getting involved, doing more. Don't be complacent. Do more for the Latinx and the LGBT plus community, because that's how it starts. That's how change always starts.
I love that. Thank you so, so much. In closing, I want to make sure that we respect all of your time. Jimena from Bank of America, we appreciate you. Jaime from Accenture and Jose from Comcast, we appreciate you. In closing, I want to remind everyone to be the most active and strategic ally that you possibly can be. And I've heard it so many times before. Oh, well, I don't want to wear the gay flag pin because I might be seen as someone who is of that community. It's okay. It's okay to be an active ally and to say, no, I'm an ally. I'm an advocate. I speak with and alongside this community. And not just during Pride Month, not just in June and October when we celebrate these instances and the significance of Pride Month. It's also so important for you to be the role model within your network, your community, and your workplace. If you see that someone from the LGBTQ community is being misrepresented or misidentified, please be the one that sticks up for them. Say something. Make sure that you have these conversations, because by having these conversations, you're being progressive and encouraging everyone else to be okay with raising their hand and doing the same thing. It's also important to understand that we're all learning. This space that you see us evolving into, we're all constantly learning. The terminology, the pronouns, the history and the context and people's experiences are all evolving every single day. So don't feel bad if you make a mistake. Apologize. Get to know someone's story and the significance of their experiences within the workplace, and then share it with your friends. Lastly, it's our self-responsibility to continue learning all about the LGBTQAI plus community, its intersectionality, the pronouns, the terminology, and how you say things within this community. It's important that you stay connected with our panelists, with Jimena, Jaime, and Jose. Make sure that you add them on LinkedIn and you continue this conversation on LinkedIn. It's important that you engage and connect so that you can encourage thought leadership within this community. I thank you all so much, especially Molson Coors, as well as Toyota, Bank of America, Accenture, and Comcast. I now welcome back to the stage the CEO of ACER, Sid Wilson, and thank you all for listening in and being super active.
Great. Thank you so much for being our moderator, Jai. And I'd like to give another special thanks to Jaime, to Jimena, and to Jose for joining the panel and sharing their experiences and perspectives on LGBTQIA plus inclusion in our Latino community in corporate America. I'd also like to thank our viewers. We appreciate everyone who took time to join us today. And as Jai mentioned, it is important for all of us to be allies and stand strongly by our LGBTQIA plus community. Before I sign off, I'd like to encourage everyone to visit ACER's website, where you will find more information about our upcoming events at acr.org. Also, I'd like to let everyone know that the applications for our 2022 ASER Young Hispanic Corporate Achievers Program will open on July 1st. The nominations form is accessible on our website. Our next webinar will take place on July 21st. It will focus on corporate philanthropy and Hispanic inclusion. So we hope that you join us for a great discussion on the topic of philanthropy and Hispanic inclusion. And then, of course, we hope to you join us for many of our upcoming programs that we'll be having in the second half of this year, especially our symposium in September and our leadership pipeline program for middle-level managers in October. So with that, muchas gracias. We hope you all have a great day. Thank you very much.